starting this by eating a granola bar, Massie?
I'm
Well, that's how
hungry.
okay. I mean, that's how we're gonna start this. You understand? You have no song this week, so I guess we can start with a cold open. So, is it good?
Yeah. How's this for your sound waves? Mm.
Yeah, there we go, folks. This is
Yeah.
great start. All right, welcome in to the special edition New Year's Happy 2024 Happy Hour podcast. I am your host, Trey Lyle at Trey Lyle VT. Joining me as he always does, the bearded gentleman, Michael Massie at M_Massie22. Massie, good to see your face. Happy 2022. And look, we're starting off the new year, right? Both rocking the green t-shirts.
Yeah.
Look at us, kicking off the new year. I've missed you. I know you've missed me so much, but how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Happy New Year 2024. It's crazy to say that out loud. But yeah, I'm doing well so far, and just been enjoying the off season, what little there is of it, and just living life, doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Well, let's bring in our third person. No special guest this week. Obviously, we typically have four with our guests, but obviously our main man Dalton Hopkins is currently out right now, doing his thing. In an undisclosed location. We'll put it that way. Serving our country. We missed you, Dalton. Give you a shout out here. So we'll have a rotating cast of characters. I think that's a good way to put it. A rotating cast of characters. Um, uh, filling the shoes, if they can, of Dalton Hopkins. The first man to do it is Chase Folsom at Folsom_Chase. If you listen to Bring the Heat with Brian Nolan, that guy, thank God I haven't had to see his face in a while. Brian Nolan, he's been on that podcast, especially when I'm filling in hosting. Chase does a lot with the car store on frontstretch.com. But Chase, happy 2024. How are you doing? And welcome into Happy Hour.
I am doing good. Thank you for having me. Like Massie said, 2024 is really weird to say, and it's even harder to write on a paper at work. I keep writing 2023. So that we're going to have to get used to that. But I have enjoyed the off season. I've enjoyed some time to kind of disconnect from racing a little bit before we get back into it next month. So I'm excited to get the new season rolling though.
Yeah, and with that, sit back, relax, and crack open a cold one. Unless here you are of the correct legal age, or you are driving, please drive responsibly here with frontstretch.com. I only say that, age appropriate, because Chase can't actually enjoy a happy hour being under the age of 21. So I just had to throw that in here to, cover our bases here legally, I think. So our lawyers don't get on us. But let's go into this 2024. So we're gonna do some driver New Year's resolutions. This whole episode actually is also going to be on our Front Stretch YouTube page, so youtube.com/Front Stretch as well. So subscribe wherever you get the podcast, but also if you're watching in the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Like this video. If you're only listening to the audio, do vice versa. Just cover us, give us a 5-star review. I'll mention it at the end again, but we need to get that up before 2024. So that's your first New Year's resolution for the fans here at Front Stretch or whoever's listening to this. But we're going to do, I think, some driver. We could do general NASCAR resolutions for 2024. And gentlemen, have as much fun you want to have with this. Any questions about our topic before we begin? I want to be sure we're all straight.
Go ahead.
Let's just launch into it.
All right, here we go.
I think we get the gist.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Amen to that. You missed the 100% shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, Chase Folsom, as our newbie here. Youngest, age before beauty. Chase, you are up first.
So I'm going to start with a pretty simple one. I think this is one that's true for all of us, but especially for this guy. A New Year's resolution for Carson Hocevar would just be to make some new friends, because he could use them on the racetrack.
I'll come in with another. That's a good one for sure. Hocevar, obviously, we thought he turned that corner, right? And then fall Martinsville happened with the Cup race. Had some issues there with some people. And then, of course, the Truck Series Championship race. Who can forget about that? Where he ran into Corey Heim with the championship on the line. So yeah, let's clean it up a little bit, Carson. I can get on board with that one. I'll throw a resolution out there, and that would be for Mr. Chase Elliott to learn to snowboard a little better. So, sorry, Chase fans. I'm sure that probably
At
stings.
M_Massie 22. I repeat, at M_Massie 22.
But yeah, obviously, like that was the downfall of his season this past year. But still, he had a lot of races to win. So I would say just get back to the basics for Chase Elliott, and because he's a future Hall of Fame driver. Just get back to the basics, what got him there, and he'll be find his way back into the victory lane.
And yes, folks, I just now realized the ticker at the bottom did go back to our last episode, the Happy Hour award show. So if you want to go back in the feed and recap what we thought of 2023, go to that. I fixed the ticker now. It is the Happy Hour New Year show. So happy 2024. But maybe I need to learn how to be a host better in 2024, or how StreamYard works. But that's a good one. For Chase, like we should maybe even revisit, like, is this going to be a bigger topic? Are we going to see this issue come up next year again with drivers doing the extra? Obviously, the big one is Kyle Larson doing the double, but are we going to have this expectation with so much, driver change? You look at the driver change this year. I think 2024 is going to have a whole new wave of it, with maybe contracts changing where you see these amendments where you can't do certain things off the racetrack.
Go ahead, Chase.
I don't know, because I feel like that could be a deterrent for a lot of guys when it comes to signing with a new team, is if one team's going to let them have some freedom and another team's not. If I'm that guy, depending on how big of an equipment gap there is, I'd want to live my life. And I think a lot of the guys would agree with that. Now, obviously, a freak snowboarding accident led to the downfall of Chase Elliott's season, no pun intended. But at the end of the day, it's not like every time somebody goes down a snowboarding slope, they're going to fall and break their leg. So sometimes freak accidents just happen, and it just so happened that two of them happened to Hendrick Motorsports in the same season. But I don't think that's grounds to start taking away guys' freedom off the racetrack.
Well, I'll say what happened to Bowman, the sprint car wreck, that seems almost more common than what happened to Chase Elliott, which you saw Joe Gibbs Racing this year limited Christopher Bell, and we'll find out if that's like a big deterrent for Christopher Bell, because I mean he didn't try to leave Gibbs after this last year of getting limited. It seems like he's happy there, so I don't know. You would have thought if he wasn't happy, if he wanted to dirt race more, he'd find his way out of a Gibbs contract into somewhere else. So that doesn't seem to be too much of a stink over there. But I think it'll just depend on the team owner. Gibbs is limiting them. I think Hendrick, which is funny, I think Hendrick used to be the one that limited guys more, has kind of freed him up. Though I think Bowman will limit his dirt racing a little bit here in the future after that injury. But I don't know. It's case by case basis, pretty much. I don't think it's going to be like across the board. The team owners are all like, "Oh, we gotta cut out this extracurricular stuff." I just think it was just a bad coincidence that it all happened this past year. Whereas we had several years before that where, you didn't hear any cases about this.
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. I think you need that outlet. You need that escape. Kyle Larson talks about, getting more laps in makes him a better driver, and you're already limiting the driver, lap time in terms of in the Cup car, even, to some degree, the Xfinity and truck car, because you limit the races they can participate in. So going to do, late model stock races to, dirt races in your local tracks, that one will grow your product from a television, standpoint in terms of, getting your eyes in different markets across the country. Like, hey, I met Kyle Larson at X dirt track. Maybe I don't watch NASCAR as much. I'm just a dirt fan. Oh, now that I've met him, maybe I'll watch him on Sundays. Like, I think that's really good for your sport. Also, people need outlets. Like, everyone has some sort of escape that they need to have, whether, for Chase Elliott, it's two dangerous ones. It's like flying and snowboarding. Like, he can't, that's what he wants to do. And so, yeah, I agree with both of you. I think that's definitely something that, you want to kind of, try to protect as much as you can, but you've seen this over time with elite athletes. Like, they need escapes. They need, competing is such a taxing, especially competing in the way they do, is such a taxing thing. Like, and it's 36 weeks out of the year. I mean, that's all, it's one of the longest schedules, in sports from and it's definitely something that's kind of insane, to not limit them, if that makes sense. I guess I'll go now with one of mine. I'm going to go with this. This is kind of hard to think about, but I want Denny Hamlin to keep embracing the villain role. Because I think that's really good. Like, we haven't, like, Kyle Busch, I guess, has kind of left the villain role since he moved from RCR. And Denny kind of has found this perfect niche with his podcast, with everything that he's doing, that he is the full on, villain of the sport. And it kind of sealed it to me when we put it as the quote of the year in the 2023 award show. Time to tie it back to that, where he said, "I beat your favorite driver." Like, I was like, that's yes. And so, as someone who, is just following the sport kind of from this, I don't want to say 10,000 foot view, but you want good stories throughout the season, and having Denny as that villain is something that is really good for the sport, and I think will allow it to grow. Plus, he's someone who's very open to access to the sport. So I think it's kind of that perfect balance. So I know resolution is something like you want to change, but I think it's like sometimes it's someone wants to embrace something more. And I think Denny definitely needs to, and I think he will, as time goes on, is embrace that villain role, more and more, because ultimately, if you're going to pick the quote unquote bad guy of NASCAR, or in the fans' eyes, I think the clear one at this point is good old Dennis Hamlin.
Yeah, I'd say the Kyle Busch villain thing is over. Like you said, it's been over a decade since we had a real great Kyle Busch villain moment. He kind of he kind of feels like the kid in school that is the class clown, and then it comes time where you got to get your grades up to graduate, and all of a sudden he's hungered down and being the good guy. That's Kyle. And Denny, on the other hand, is the student that all was good, and then all of a sudden got some senioritis, and it's just now he's the class clown. So they kind of met in the middle, and Denny is taking that spot as the public enemy number one. But yeah, go for it. I mean, he's never gonna win the most popular driver, so you might as well go the other way. It's his brand now. It's working for him. It wasn't a distraction. I'd say he was better this year than last year, probably. Really, I mean, just he was a Ryan Blaney away from being up there competing for a championship. So yeah, I'd say go for it again.
I don't really have much to add to it. I will just say that I was at Bristol in the stands when he said that, and that was maybe the loudest set of boos that I have ever heard at a racetrack in a very long time, since I was probably a kid and Kyle Busch said something dumb. that was weekly back then. But yeah, it was very cool to see the because for a villain, if you're going to embrace the villain role, you don't really care whether or not you get positive or negative engagement. You just want engagement. And to see that amount of negative engagement in that race at that track was a really cool sight to see. Whether or not you like the man doesn't really matter. So I think it's healthy for the sport, like you guys said, and I don't really have much else to add.
And I was
Go
going
ahead.
to say one thing. It also brings to back, we talk about it with Kevin Harvick and losing him. Like, if you talk about the true characters in this sport and like what made this sport, you had the characters of the Dale Earnhardts, the Dale Waltrips, Jeff Gordon, the into the 2000s, Dale Jr., Jimmy to some degree, like Kyle Busch, early Kyle Busch.
Hell yeah, bro.
Cale Yarbrough, who recently passed away. Like, there have been so many different characters. It's what makes the sport, the individuality of the sport and the individuality loyalty that fans have to the sport is so intertwined in this. And that was some big words by Trey right there. I think the only true kind of person that shows individuality right now, really to me is Denny Hamlin on that elite level at least. And it's definitely something that is fun to see. And Ryan Blaney to some degree as well. And, I'm talking about like the top tier. Like I think Bubba belongs in the kind of, character individuality of that sport as well. Like, but you look at like a Larson, a Bell, Willie B, those guys, they're very, like that's the best way I can put it. And I'm not trying to be critical here. It's just, that's kind of where we're at.
Vanilla.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go ahead and give another one. This isn't for a specific driver, but rather a team, and more specifically their pit crew. A New Year's resolution for the 45 pit crew is to get all 4 tires on the car. They struggled with that a couple times this year. Kentucky, Nashville, and Michigan.
Xfinity?
No, the 45 Cup team, Tyler Reddick's pit crew.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Nashville.
Time guy, pick it up, man.
Nashville, Michigan come to mind, where they probably coulda, shoulda, woulda, maybe won some races, and they failed to do their job and get all 4 tires on the race car. So that's a pretty important thing you got to do, and that's definitely a goal to strive for.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I mean, I would recommend getting, all 4 tires, and, pit crew struggles. 2311 has kind of been, that's as their new team, that's where they've lacked probably the most, and maybe that's the hardest to develop, just is finding good pit crew members, just because of how the major teams have kind of have like 10 deep pit crews, it feels like at some points, because they lease them out to other teams. So it'll be interesting to see year 3. This is, I think, the second year 2311 is keeping pit crews in-house, how that develops.
I'm trying to remember too, are they providing legacy with pit crews, or was it Joe Gibbs?
I don't know. I've given up on trying who has what. Like, I know like Trackhouse has someone, and then like Hendrick has 600 teams they use, and then same thing for whatever.
Oh yeah, Hendrick.
What I do is when Bob Pockris is like, this team is using this pit crew from this organization, I'm like, okay.
I just
shout out to Dax. Dax works for Hendrick and is former
Virginia
who was at Tech when I was a student and got to cover as a student reporter. He is now a pit crew member for Spire and Hendrick Motorsports. So shout out to Dax, who was on the field standing next to JC Price as he lit up the cigar in Charlottesville as we kicked UVA's ass. So go Hokies. And that's our college football segment of this podcast.
I'm sure we'll get back to it.
I'm just curious because I guess neither of you guys are from the kind of Mooresville, Charlotte area. So I don't know. It's kind of flown under the radar, the fact that 2311's building a really big race shop right off of I-77. And I just wonder, like, when all that gets done and they fully start working out of there, how much does the Gibbs Alliance continue, and how much do they really become their own thing with a large amount of resources for themselves?
Yeah, it does feel like it is becoming more and more its own thing. Like the pit crew thing is an obvious step. And I mean, really, with this whole car, you don't need the alliances as much as you used to, because
I
it's
agree.
not like Gibbs is developing the chassis or anything like that. So yeah, they really kind of are weaning themselves off. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like DEI. Um, originally it was pretty close to Childress, but it felt like it kind of became more and more its own thing. Um, and it was especially after Dale Senior passed, it really was like its own thing. But um, yeah, 2311. I think it's cool to see this. Not just, I think a lot of people were scared that, oh, Gibbs is just gonna have like 6 cars out there now, basically. But no, I appreciate that they are trying to do it their own way.
Yeah. And the shop looks nice, I will say, for anybody that hasn't seen it. It's sitting right on the edge of the interstate and it looks really nice. I just hope nobody goes flying through the barricades one night.
All right, so we have 2 more New Year's resolutions, one for Massie, one for me, and then we'll get out of here. We'll explain how 2024 Front Stretch podcast will work as well at the end of this as well. So Massie, what's another one you have?
Oh man. Uh Trying to think of some. There's like the easy pickings, right? Like Stewart Haas Racing, Stewart Haas Racing, Austin Cindric, Harrison Burton. I'd group them all kind of in the same category. Win a race or get in the playoffs. Either one of those would be a good resolution. Uh, Stewart Haas went winless this past year for the first time ever, ever. And yeah, with Kevin Harvick leaving, it's a huge transition. I think a lot of people are doubting them. It'd be, if they could go out there and prove people wrong, that'd be a huge statement. Just go out there and win some races with Josh Berry or Briscoe or Priest. And then the same thing with Harrison Burton and Austin Cindric. Their teammates have won the championship the past 2 years. They haven't done a whole lot. I know Cindric won the Daytona 500, but outside of that, hasn't done a whole lot. So those guys really got to step up and prove a lot of naysayers wrong. Let a naysayer know.
Blank. Yeah.
Oh, that was great.
Just actually, I was gonna say Google that, but just go to Pat McAfee's Twitter and you'll figure that out. Because I think if you Google that, then that'll get you down the wrong rabbit hole. Maybe it won't, but yeah. So a lot of people are in must-win situations next year, like needing that win. Stewart Haas, maybe given. It'll be interesting to see with their relationship with Ford ending, how that works out. I think the top person, at a must win is Austin Cindric, just because he's in a Penske car and proving to people you don't have your ride just because your dad is Tim Cindric, the president at Penske. And is there going to be, and you could throw Harrison Burton as kind of the, he could be really affected by this. And let's say Cole Custer goes back to back Xfinity titles. And, there's not a spot for him at Stewart Haas and Ford wants him up. Like, that could be 2 spots he takes. So, in terms of guy looking, maybe I'm obviously missing the obvious in Chase. And I feel like Chase is the clear, like, if Chase doesn't win within the first month of the year, we're getting Dale Jr. 2.0, like in terms of like, oh, when is Chase gonna win again? NASCAR's most popular driver, like that kind of pressure. But in terms of like Chase Elliott will always have a ride because he's NASCAR's most popular driver. Like in terms of saving your career or like getting your career back on track, I would put Cindric and Burton as like the top 2 needing to have maybe not, Cindric probably needs a win, but if you're Harrison Burton, like fringe playoffs at least in terms of making it on points, being one of the top 16 to 20 drivers, which he hasn't been in his career yet, and he's in really good equipment because that's what you at least got from Matt DiBenedetto, who he replaced.
Yeah.
Matt was
Matt
a
made
top
playoffs.
16 to 20 driver.
Yeah, he made the playoffs. I'd also say Chase Elliott has that piece of hardware.
Yeah, he has a
That
championship, but
yeah,
like when Junior was, but I mean, Junior finished second in the championship when the championship meant like was actual points, not what it is now. Like, you know,
that's true.
so like it's hard to compare that exactly because of the way the championship format is. But I mean, you know, Junior had a really good start to his career, won a lot of races, and then he had that point where he didn't. And if Chase has that point where he didn't,
But I'm just saying, because of that championship trophy, because of the popularity thing, Chase Elliott could go the rest of his career without making
oh,
the
I know.
playoffs.
See,
And
like it was the same thing with
fine.
Dale Jr.
Yeah.
Like it was the same thing with Dale Jr. I'm just saying it. We're approaching that territory.
Yeah.
So I remember about that time with Dale Jr. My age is a lot. Just growing up in that time was different
You
for
were
me
about to
than it
say
was
that
for
age is a
y'all.
lot different than us two. Come on,
No,
Chase.
I wasn't. I
Be
wasn't. What I'm
careful
trying
now,
to
youngin.
say. What I'm
I'm
trying to
not as
say.
old as Massie. Let's
I
just.
stopped myself. I stopped myself.
We knew
When
what you
I
were going
was.
to say.
Nobody knows what I was going to say because I didn't say it.
Mm-hmm.
We know what you were thinking.
We know. Don't worry, Massie's a very old man. It's okay.
There's no proof. What I was going to say is I grew up and started watching NASCAR as a kid right at the beginning of that time period for Dale Jr. And I'm not going to lie, until I got older and I learned the history of it, I thought Dale Jr. sucked because I grew up and I was like, what's the hype around this guy? He's never won a race as long as I've been watching, because I remember vaguely 2008 because I was, not to make myself look young here, but 4 years old. So 2009 was the first season I really remember, and that was kind of when it all went downhill for Junior. So when he kind of came back at the end of his career and I learned the history of it, it's a really cool thing. I understood why he always had his right. I agree with you guys that Cindric and Burton are definitely the two on the biggest hot seat. But I like what Stewart Haas Racing is doing. I don't know if, I'm sure you two have, but anybody listening has kept up with their Twitter and what they've been just pushing on social media is, for the longest time, they've had big name drivers. They had Kurt Busch she was a big name, Danica Patrick, obviously Kevin Harvick. They had Ryan Newman at one point. Clint Boyer had a big name just because he's funny. And now they don't have any of that. And they have a group of 4 drivers that have made their way to their seat. I mean, there's money involved somewhere along the line, but they're there because they're racers. And they have shifted their brand from a driver to driver brand to a just team brand of racers, short track racers. And I feel like for them to make any progress forward back to what they were with the drivers that they have, that is the best route for them to go, is just to get behind that hard-nosed short track racing narrative and run with it and hope that those 4 guys can push that narrative and start winning some races.
All right. That's pretty good. All right. The last one, and the most important one. I'm going to go with another obvious one, and Massie, you might have to shut me out. Noah, just stay off of the internet. I think you got your second chance.
What do you mean by that, Trey?
We all know what that meant.
What are you talking about?
Noah Gregson, just stay off the internet. I mean,
I enjoy his posts of him at Waffle House after a win at 3 a.m. Why would he stay off the internet?
You can do that. Just loose thumbs make mistakes. That's all I will say. Whether you agree with what happened to him or not, he has his second chance, and I think he'll do well at Stewart Haas Racing, and I hope for the best of him because I think he's a really talented race car driver, and I think he's good for the sport because he likes the fan interaction aspect of the sport, and he's different. And so just, I would have said the same thing with Kyle Larson, and Kyle Larson even made a joke about it on Twitter recently when he talked about iRacing setup. So I give him credit for that. So Noah, just, you can set a timer on your iPhone where it will restrict you on social media. Maybe you need to do that. Like parents do to their kids.
Those don't always work if you have the password.
That is true. I've seen that. I've seen the loopholes.
I've seen plenty of people. They just hit the add time button. So maybe
I
we need
know.
a more restrictive method for Noah.
Maybe just someone physically take his phone away. I don't know. But yeah, so I think that's a good way to end this episode. I think that's we gave some bold predictions. I believe in the bringing the heat episode. I know we recently gave bold prediction for 2024. I think it was in the last episode of the Happy Hour Award show.
I don't remember. It feels like 5 years ago.
It does, but so we're not going to get bold predictions for 2024. We'll save that maybe for the next episode. But before you know it, we'll have Bringing the Heat, we'll have Stock Car Scoop, we'll have Happy Hour where it relates to NASCAR. Obviously, we'll have Through the Gears, the betting side of things, as well as we'll also have the Pit Straight when Formula One season comes back. So, gentlemen, Chase, at Folsom _Chase, connect with him at M_Massie22. You can connect with me at Trey Lyle BT. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to this video at youtube.com/frontstretch. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Happy Hour.
Hey everyone, Dalton Hopkins here with frontstretch.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and check out one of the 2 videos next to me to see more of our racing content.